Two little boys stole a big bag of oranges from a neighbor. They decided to go to a quiet place to share the lot equally. One of them suggested the nearby cemetery. As they were jumping over the gate to enter the cemetery, two oranges fell out of the big bag, but they didn't bother to pick them up since they had enough in the bag. A few minutes later, a drunkard on his way from a bar passed near the cemetery gate and heard a voice saying, "One for me, one for you. One for me, one for you, one for me, one for you." He immediately sobered up and ran as fast as he could to a church nearby. For the priest, "Father, please come with me." Come and witness God and Satan sharing corpses at the cemetery. They both ran back to the cemetery gate, and the voice continued, "One for me, one for you. One for me, one for you, one for me, one for you." Suddenly, the voice stopped counting and said, "What about the two at the gate?" A young man was showing off his new sports car to his girlfriend. She was thrilled at the speed. "If I do 200 kilometers per hour, will you take all of your clothes off?" The girlfriend felt adventurous and said, "Yes, of course." He brought the car up to the 200 kilometers per hour benchmark. However, he was unable to keep his eyes on the road, and the car swerved and then flipped over. The naked girl was thrown clear, but the boyfriend got stuck in a hole. "Go and get help," he yelled. "I can't. I'm naked." "Take my shoe," he said, "and cover yourself." Holding the shoe to her pubes, she ran off, down the road. She came to a gas station and ran inside to the proprietor. "Please help. My boyfriend got stuck in a hole." The proprietor looks at her, looked at the shoe, and then said, "There's nothing I can do. He's too far in." A mother ant and her daughter were out for a walk in their underground city. They were having a lovely day until they came upon a group of protesters outside the Queen's domain. One, with a sign reading, "It's time to go," spotted them and quickly approached. "Excuse me, ma'am, can you spare a moment to take a look at some alarming literature and help support our cause?" he half shouted at her. The mother held up her hand and tried to pass, but the protester blocked her and continued. "It is imperative that we evacuate the colony. Did you know that the dirt we live in, that we raise our children in, contains magnesium and aluminum and God knows what else?" Again, she politely but firmly shook her head, pulling her daughter along as the man shouted after her, "You owe it to your little girl to evacuate now." After they gained some distance, the young ant looked up worriedly at her mother. "Was that man right, Mommy? Are we in danger?" The mother smiled. "No, sweetheart, don't worry. Just because they use big words to try to scare us doesn't mean the ant-evacs movement has any idea what it's talking about." A little boy and his grandfather are raking leaves in the yard. The little boy sees an earthworm trying to get back into its hole. He says, "Grandpa, I bet I can put that worm back in that hole." The grandfather replies, "I'll bet you $5 you can't. It's too wiggly and limp to put back in that little hole." The little boy runs into the house and comes back out with a can of hairspray. He sprays the worm until it is straight and stiff as a board. The boy then proceeds to put the worm back into the hole. The grandfather hands the little boy $5, grabs the hairspray, and runs into the house. 30 minutes later, the grandfather comes back out and hands the boy another $5. The little boy says, "Grandpa, you already gave me $5. The grandfather replies, "I know. That's from your grandma." A woman decided to have a facelift for her birthday. She spent $5,000 and felt really good about the results. On her way home, she stopped at a dress shop to look around. As she was leaving, she said to the sales clerk, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but how old do you think I am?" "About 35, he replied. "I'm actually 47, the woman said, feeling really happy. After that, she went into McDonald's for lunch and asked the order taker the same question. He replied, "Oh, you look about 29. "I am actually 47, she said, feeling really good. While standing at the bus stop, she asked an old man the same question. He replied, "I am 85 years old and my eyesight is going." But when I was young, there was a sure way of telling a woman's age. If I put my hand up your skirt, I will be able to tell your exact age." There was no one around, so the woman said, "What the hell?" and let him slip his hand up her skirt. After feeling around for a while, the old man said, "Okay, you are 47. Stunned, the woman said, "That was brilliant." "How did you do that?" The old man replied, "I was behind you in line at McDonald's." A man walked into a movie theater with a duck on a leash. The ticket agent stopped him. "Sorry, sir, no animals allowed," the man insisted, "but it's my service pet." Without proof, he was turned away. Determined, the man snuck to the side of the theater, stuffed the duck down his pants, and walked in unnoticed. He sat beside two women in the packed theater. 20 minutes later, the duck got hot and restless, so the man unzipped his pants to let it breathe. The duck poked its head out, looking around. One woman gasped, "Oh my God, the guy next to me just unzipped his pants." Her friend shrugged. "Relax, once you've seen one, you've seen them all." The first woman whispered back, "Yeah, but this one is eating my popcorn." A young woman walked into a downtown bank one morning. "I'd like to borrow $100 for 1 month, she said politely. The banker blinked. "Just 100? "Yes." "Is that a problem?" He checked her records. Nothing on file. "Well, without a credit history, we'd need 20% interest, and you'll have to leave something valuable as collateral." She thought for a moment. "Will my Ferrari do?" The banker nearly fell off his chair, but sure enough, the paperwork checked out. She owned it outright. So he processed the loan, parked her Ferrari in the bank's secure garage, and handed her $100 in cash. 30 days later, she returned. Smiling, she slid $120 across the counter. "Thank you. I'll take my keys back now." As she turned to leave, the banker couldn't resist. "Miss, why would you leave a $140,000 car here for such a tiny loan?" She winked. "Because in New York City, I just found the safest parking spot for my Ferrari. 1 month for $20. On a busy flight, a little girl wouldn't stop kicking the seat in front of her. Her mom begged her to behave, but the kicks just kept coming. Thump, 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 driving the poor passenger crazy. Finally, a sweet, elderly grandma sitting across the aisle leaned over with a kind smile. She reached into her bag, pulled out a handful of cookies, and whispered something to the girl. Like magic, the kicking stopped. The little girl sat up straight, folded her hands, and didn't make another sound for the entire flight. The mom looked amazed. "Wow, what did you say to her?" The grandma grinned and said, "I told her every time she kicked that seat, I was going to eat one of her cookies." Tom, a passionate golfer, got into a nasty car accident and ended up in the hospital. Just before the anesthesia kicked in, the surgeon leaned over and said, "Tom, I've got some good news and some bad news." Tom gulped. "Hit me with the bad news first, Doc." "The accident crushed your right arm. We'll have to replace it." Tom panicked. "My golfing days are over. Please, tell me the good news." The doctor smiled. "We found a perfect donor arm, but it belonged to a woman. I need your permission to go ahead." Tom thought for a moment and said, "Doc, if I can still swing a club, go for it." The surgery went perfectly. A year later, Tom met the surgeon at the golf course. "Tom, how's the new arm?" the doctor asked. "Amazing," Tom grinned. "My swing is better than ever. My putting's smooth, and I've shaved 6 strokes off my game." "That's incredible," said the doctor. "Any unexpected side effects?" "Well, 2, Tom replied. "I can't parallel park anymore, and every time I get excited, I also get a headache." Ma and Pa were 2 country folks living simply on their little farm. One day, Pa noticed that the pit under the outhouse had finally filled up. Scratching his head, he went inside and told Ma. "Well, why don't you go ask that boy down the road?" Ma suggested. "He's college educated, ought to know everything." So Pa drove over, explained the problem, and the young man said, "Easy. Get yourself 2 sticks of dynamite. Light 'em both. One burns fast, the other slow. The first blast will launch the outhouse into the air, and while it's up there, the second blast will clear the hole. Then the outhouse will drop right back where it belongs." Pa thought that sounded mighty clever. He bought the dynamite, set it in place, lit the fuses, and ran to hide behind a tree. Right then, Ma rushed out of the house and slipped into the outhouse without Pa noticing. The first blast shook the ground. K-boom! Up went the outhouse, flying like a rocket. The second one blew, and the mess spread across the farm like a storm cloud. Finally, the outhouse crashed back down, landing perfectly over the pit. Panicked, Pa ran over, yanked open the door, and shouted, "Ma, you okay in there?" Ma straightened herself, sighed, and said, "Well, I'm fine, but thank goodness I wasn't sneezing in the kitchen." An elderly woman rode into town and tied her mule outside the saloon. She was brushing the trail dust off her clothes when a cocky young cowboy swaggered out, swaying a bit from whiskey, a revolver spinning in his hand. He smirked. "Hey, Granny, ever done a little dancing?" She answered evenly. "No, can't say I have." The cowboy grinned. "Well, today's your lucky day." He started firing shots at the ground near her boots, and she hopped around to avoid getting her toes blown off. The onlookers roared with laughter. When his last shot rang out, the cowboy spun his gun back into the holster and strutted away. The woman quietly walked to her mule, reached into a saddlebag, and pulled out a double-barreled shotgun. Click, click. The sound froze the whole street. The cowboy stopped cold and turned slowly. In a steady voice, she asked, "Son, have you ever kissed a mule's backside?" He gulped. "No, ma'am. But I reckon today's my lucky day, too." At the tee, the Englishman's wife bends over to place her ball. A gust of wind flips her skirt, revealing she's not wearing underwear. "Good heavens, woman! Why no undies?" her husband exclaims. "You don't give me enough housekeeping money." He sighs, pulls out 20 pounds. "For decency's sake, go buy some." Next, the Irishman's wife does the same. Wind, skirt up, nothing underneath. "Blessed Mary, woman! Why no undies? Can't afford any on what you give me." He hands her 10 pounds. "Go get some, for heaven's sake." Finally, the Scotsman's wife steps up. Wind blows her skirt over her head. Same story. "Sweet saints above, Aggie! Where are your drawers? You didn't give me enough to afford any." He reaches into his pocket, hands her a comb. "Well then, tidy yourself up a bit." An engineer, a physicist, and a mathematician are imprisoned, each in separate cells. Days go by without food, and eventually, the warden decides to check on them. He and a guard arrive at the first cell, the engineer's, but it's empty. There's a hole in the solid concrete wall. "How did he do that?" asks the guard. The warden inspects the room and replies, "He fashioned a pickaxe out of the utensils we gave him and dug his way out." They move to the next cell, the physicist's. It's also empty, with another hole in the wall. Again, the warden inspects and says, "He calculated the wall's structural weaknesses and used a rock to strike the precise spot until it gave way." Finally, they reach the mathematician's cell. He's still there, but lying lifeless on the floor from starvation. Papers are scattered on his bed. The guard frowns. "I thought for sure he'd have figured a way out, too." The warden picks up the papers, scans them, then smirks. "Oh, he did." "What do you mean?" The warden holds up the notes. He spent all his time writing a flawless proof demonstrating escape was possible, but never actually did it. I had lunch with two of my unmarried friends. One is engaged, one is a mistress, and I have been married for 20-plus years. We were chatting about our relationships and decided to amaze our men by greeting them at the door, wearing a black bra, stiletto heels, and a mask over our eyes. We agreed to meet in a few days to exchange notes. Here's how it all went. My engaged friend. The other night when my boyfriend came over, he found me with a black leather bodice, tall stilettos, and a mask. He saw me and said, "You are the woman of my dreams." I love you. Then we made passionate love all night long. The mistress, me too. The other night I met my lover at his office, and I was wearing a raincoat, under it only the black bra, heels, and mask over my eyes. When I opened the raincoat, he didn't say a word, but he started to tremble, and we had wild love all night. Then I had to share my story. When my husband came home, I was wearing the black bra, black stockings, stilettos, and a mask over my eyes. When he came in the door and saw me, he said, "What's for dinner, Zorro?" An elderly couple was sitting in a diner when the husband leaned over and said, "Do you remember the very first time we kissed and cuddled behind the village tavern more than 50 years ago?" His wife smiled. "Of course I do." "Well," he said, "how about we take a stroll back there and relive the memory for old time's sake?" She laughed. "Oh, Jim, you're such a rascal, but why not?" A police officer sitting nearby overheard them and thought, "I've got to see this." So he quietly followed as the old couple shuffled down the street. When they reached the fence behind the tavern, the two leaned against it, hugged each other tightly, and suddenly began shaking and jumping around like teenagers again. The officer's eyes went wide. It looked like the most energetic moment he'd ever seen. After a while, they both collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily. When they finally got up, the officer approached and asked, "Excuse me, but that was amazing. What's your secret?" The old man wiped his brow, steadied himself on his cane, and replied, 50 years ago, that wasn't an electric fence." The other day, a blonde walked into a pharmacy and very seriously asked for bottom deodorant. The assistant froze for a moment, blinked twice, and said, "I'm sorry, we don't sell anything like that here." But the blonde insisted, "I always buy it here. Please check again." Now the assistant, trying not to laugh, called the pharmacist. "Maybe you can help this lady." The pharmacist came out, all professional, and asked, "Miss, what exactly are you looking for?" "Bottom deodorant, please," she replied with confidence. The pharmacist smiled politely. "I'm afraid we don't carry such a product." The blonde crossed her arms. "Yes, you do. I buy it here all the time. Do you want me to bring the container?" Off she went, and came back proudly holding a little plastic stick. The pharmacist examined it carefully, then shook his head with a chuckle. "Ma'am, this is just a regular stick of underarm deodorant." The blonde snatched it back, rolled her eyes, and read the label out loud. "Directions. Push up bottom to use." A married couple was in a terrible car accident. The husband survived, but his face was badly burned. The doctor explained that skin grafts were possible, but the husband was too thin. There simply wasn't enough healthy skin on his own body to use. That's when the wife quietly stepped forward. Without hesitation, she said, "Take mine." The doctor examined her carefully and shook his head. "There's only one place where the skin would be suitable. But it's a very delicate matter." It was from her buttocks. The couple looked at each other. No words were needed, just a gentle nod of agreement. They would keep this their secret forever. The doctor promised absolute discretion. The surgery was a success. In fact, it was more than that. The husband's face was transformed. He looked younger, healthier, and even more handsome than before. Friends and family couldn't stop marveling. "Wow, you look amazing. You've never looked better. What a miracle of modern medicine! The man accepted the compliments with a smile, but inside he carried a quiet weight. He knew the truth, that his wife's sacrifice was literally written on his face. One evening, overwhelmed with gratitude, he turned to her and said softly, "My darling, I don't know how to thank you. I owe you my life, my confidence, everything. Please tell me, how can I ever repay you?" She took his hand, smiled gently, and whispered, "My love, I get all the thanks I need every single time I see your mother kiss you on the cheek." Once upon a time, a king decided he wanted to go fishing. Before leaving, he asked his royal weather forecaster about the day's outlook. The forecaster confidently assured him, "Your Majesty, you have nothing to fear. There will be no rain for days." Satisfied, the king and queen set off for the river. On their way, they passed a humble farmer, riding his donkey. The farmer bowed and said, "Your Majesty, I advise you to turn back. A great rainstorm will arrive very soon." The king, amused, replied, "My good man, I pay my meteorologist a fortune because he is a learned expert with years of experience. I trust him, not you." And so the king continued on. But only a short time later, a torrential rain drenched the royal couple. The court chuckled at the sight of their soaked king and queen. Furious, the king stormed back to the palace and immediately fired the forecaster. He then summoned the farmer and offered him the job. "Your Majesty," said the farmer, "I know nothing about forecasting. I only watch my donkey. When his ears droop, I know rain is coming." So the king hired the donkey on the spot. And thus began the ancient tradition. The Smiths couldn't have kids, so they decided to try a surrogate father to start their family. On the big day, Mr. Smith kissed his wife goodbye. "Well, I'm off now. The man should be here soon." Half an hour later, a door-to-door baby photographer rings the doorbell, hoping to make a sale. "Good morning. I've come to—" "Oh, no need to explain," Mrs. Smith interrupted, a little embarrassed. "I've been expecting you." "Really?" said the photographer. "Well, babies are my specialty." She invited him in and after a moment asked, blushing, "Where do we start?" "Leave it to me," he said. "I usually try 2 in the bathtub, 1 on the couch, maybe a couple on the bed. The living room floor's fun. Lots of space to spread out." "Bathtub and living room floor?" Mrs. Smith gasped. "No wonder it didn't work out with Harry and me." "Well, I can't guarantee a perfect shot every time, but if we try several positions and I shoot from 6 or 7 angles, I'm sure you'll be pleased." "That's a lot," she said. "In my line of work, a man has to take his time. I'd love to be in and out in 5 minutes, but I'm sure you'd be disappointed." "Don't I know it," she whispered. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a portfolio. This one was done on top of a bus. "Oh, my God!" Mrs. Smith gasped. "And these twins turned out great, even though their mother was difficult." I had to take her to the park. People were 4 and 5 deep, crowding around for 3 hours. The mother kept squealing and yelling. I barely got my shots. When squirrels started nibbling on my equipment, I had to pack up. Mrs. Smith leaned forward. "They actually chewed on your equipment?" "Yep, but if you're ready, I'll set up my tripod, and we can get started." "Tripod?" "Yes, my Canon is too big to hold for long." Mrs. Smith fainted. During a trial in a small southern town, the prosecuting attorney called his first witness, an elderly, sweet-looking grandmother, Mrs. Jones. He approached her and asked, "Mrs. Jones, do you know me?" She smiled. "Why, yes, I do, Mr. Williams. I've known you since you were a boy, and frankly, you've been a big disappointment. You lie, you cheat on your wife, and you manipulate people while gossiping behind their backs. You think you're some big shot, but bless your heart, you don't have the brains to be anything more than a 2-bit paper pusher. Yes, I know you. The lawyer turned pale. Desperate to change the subject, he pointed across the room. Mrs. Jones, do you know the defense attorney? She nodded. Oh, I sure do. I've known Mr. Bradley since he was a boy, too. He's lazy, bigoted, and drinks like a fish. He can't maintain a normal relationship, and his law practice is one of the worst in the state. Oh, and he cheated on his wife with 3 different women. One of them was your wife. The courtroom fell silent. The defense attorney nearly fainted. The judge quickly banged his gavel and whispered sternly, If either of you idiots asks her if she knows me, I swear I'll send you both to the electric chair. A man boards a plane and gets settled into his seat. As he glances up, he spots an absolutely stunning woman walking down the aisle. To his surprise, she stops right next to him and sits down beside him. Eager to start a conversation, he says, "Business trip or vacation?" She turns to him with a smile and replies, "Business. I'm heading to the annual Sexual Studies Convention in Chicago." The man nearly chokes on his own breath. Sexual Studies Convention, and this beautiful woman is going? His mind starts racing, but he keeps his cool and asks, "What's your role there?" "Lecturer," she answers casually. "I use my extensive personal experience to share fascinating facts about sexuality." Curiosity piqued, he leans in and asks, "Like what?" She smiles and begins, "Well, for example, Native American Indians are the most passionate lovers. Jewish men are the best at fully satisfying a woman. And when it comes to stamina, surprisingly, it's the Southern redneck who lasts the longest." She blushes a little, clearly embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be telling you all this. I don't even know your name." The man grins, extending his hand. "Tonto Goldstein at your service, but my friends call me Bubba." 4 old-timers were playing their weekly game of golf. One of them said, "You know, it would be nice to wake up on Christmas morning, roll out of bed, and without any argument go straight to the golf course, meet up with the guys, and play a round." The other 3 agreed. "Let's do it! We'll make it a priority, figure out a way, and we'll meet here early on Christmas morning." Months go by, and Christmas morning finally arrives. They're all at the course, ready to play. The first guy says, "Boy, this game cost me a fortune. I bought my wife a diamond ring that she can't take her eyes off of." The second guy chimes in, "I spent a ton too. My wife is at home planning a cruise I gave her. She's buried in brochures." The third guy adds, "Well, my wife's at home admiring her new car, reading the manual." They all turn to the last guy, who's just staring at them like they've lost their minds. He shakes his head and says, "I can't believe you all spent so much for this golf game. I just slapped my wife on the bum and said, 'Well, babe, Merry Christmas.' It's a great morning, golf course or intercourse. She said, 'Don't forget your hat.'" Jack Nicklaus is having a drink at a bar with Stevie Wonder. "So, Stevie," Jack asks, "how's the music career going?" "Not bad," Stevie replies. "My latest album hit the top 10, so I'm pretty happy. How's golf treating you?" "Still swinging," Jack chuckles. "Not winning as much, but making decent money." "Been working on my swing lately." Stevie nods. "Yeah, I know the feeling. When my swing's off, I take a break, think it over, and I'm back on track." Jack stares at him, puzzled. "Wait, you play golf?" "Of course. Been playing for years," Stevie says, smiling. "But you're blind. How do you play?" Stevie laughs. "No offense taken. I get my caddy to stand in the middle of the fairway and call out. I follow the sound of his voice and hit the ball toward him. Same thing on the green. He kneels by the hole and calls to me so I can line up my putt." Jack is stunned. "That's incredible. What's your handicap?" "I play off scratch," Stevie says casually. Jack, still amazed, grins. "We've got to play a round sometime." Stevie smiles slyly. Sure, but I only play for money, never less than $100,000 a hole. Nicholas thinks for a moment, confident in his skills. All right, I'm in. When do you want to play? Stevie leans in. Any night next week works for me.